Yes, it is. And we are live.
Hello,
Hello,
friend.
friends. Let
Um,
us know when you're here. Give us a shout out in the chat when you're on. I can't tell if anyone is
I
yet.
somebody is, they are.
Tanya's here. Hi, Tanya.
How do you see that already? I'm a little bit jealous.
Well, it does pop up. Are you not seeing? Oh, here we
I
are.
did now. I
My
did now.
Stephanie's here.
Donovan,
Hi,
do you see them
Stephers.
on there? Have you moved over to comments so you can see? Okay, great.
Okay,
So we
good.
haven't gone live yet on the page, so I haven't been able to grab it, but that's okay. I'm just gonna get started. I'll grab that in a moment.
Okay.
Um, so I'm just so in awe of our opportunity this evening. Thank you so much. I see Rachel, Stephanie, and Tanya here already.
Yeah.
We are here. Sherra and I are here. I've introduced myself before, but just in case somebody else is watching this that is not here, sorry. Hold on. Now we've got it going. Sorry. I I did a bad thing. I just shut my phone off. Okay. Anyways, I'm gonna go back to it. My name is Crystal. I am doing these lives with Sherra, my heart over there, and my goal in this live is to bring awareness to numerous of things. I'll share that in just a moment when we introduce Donavan. We're hoping that our community is feeling here, whole, open, and ready and kind. Yeah. So
Ah.
Sherra, take a second please and introduce yourself. I'll try to get my phone back.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I always call Crystal. Crystal's she is my heart sister. We seem to align with everything heart centered, especially when it comes around kids and families and those adults that support our kids. So I am super grateful as well to share this platform beyond the classroom with Crystal. I am Sherra Grasser. I'm a youth empowerment coach and the founder and director of Me Powerment Programs. And Crystal and I also share that we both have two young adult children, and our kids are all within the same age, 25 to 22. Am I right, Crystal? Yours are right in there
Yep.
too?
Yep.
Yeah. So we met when my 22-year-old was just a newborn. So we've been in the long haul waiting for this to come for a long time. So hi Katie, hi Rachel. So
Yeah.
happy you are all here. So Crystal, I'm going to go ahead and hand you back the talking stick so that you can introduce Donavan to
So
everyone.
excited. I've been waiting for this moment. I want to go back to Donovan and I was so fortunate to get to work with you, Donovan, a few weeks back. We had about 5 minutes in between workshops to talk, and the strength behind the stories that you shared with me, I just know that and feel so confident that our community is ready to hear this. And so what I know about you, Donovan, and what I would like to share with them, and then I will hand it over to you. Donovan is a WW employee with me. Amazing man, is a dog trainer, which we have a lot of dog lovers on this page.
Yep.
And you have overcome a ton, and you have overcome things in your life that are very hard. And the platform that Sherra and I are passionate about sharing is having very hard conversations. And so with that, I want to give you the utmost appreciation for being willing to come and share all of whatever part of your story that you are willing to share. And then to our community, I really, I really want you to know that the reason why, as you're listening to all of these very hard things, um, isn't because it's just, somebody's story. I want you to think about how every piece of this story from Donovan could touch somebody in our community. And if nothing else, to go all the way back to what Sherra and I do is if you can help your kids be aware or get through some of the things that Donavan has overcome, that would be amazing. And if you could teach your kids tolerance, understanding, and acceptance for everyone, we would be doing a good thing today. And with that being said, Donavan, I give all my heart to you. I am so thankful for you.
Thanks.
How would you like to start?
How? Geez. Okay. Yeah. My name is Donavan. And I am. Man. I'm a survivor of child abuse. I was born deaf in one ear and hard of hearing in another. My parents were told not to let me gesture, not to let me sign, or I would never learn how to speak. So this ended up cutting me off from community that I could have possibly had as a child. And so that made my childhood really lonely and really isolated. And so that kind of led to me being able to, fall into being victimized, sadly, by a teacher in elementary school. Let's see. I went through a lot of speech and language pathology, learning how to speak, a couple of surgeries to try to repair my ears. One ear got better, the other ear was no change. But I spent a lot of those years isolated and being told that I wasn't ever going to learn. I wasn't ever going to learn how to read. I wasn't ever going to learn how to do math. That my learning disabilities were just between the learning disabilities and the deafness. Everything was just, too much. I was always going to be an IEP kid. I was always going to, have these difficulties. And I kind of don't know where it came from that through the middle of it, I kind of developed a I'll show you kind of attitude. That I just wasn't willing to be pigeonholed in any place that wasn't really me. And so in the middle of all of this, with all of that going on, I also knew by the time I was about 4 or 5 years old that I was not female, I was male. And so on top of all the other issues going on, being nonverbal and, educational problems and all of the above, I'm trying to assert who I am as a human being, despite a mother that really felt like, every little girl should be in dresses and have long curls in their hair. And yeah, so add that on top of it. And it was a pretty miserable elementary school existence. Luckily, by the time I got to junior high, I had learned how to speak fairly well by that point, and I was able to kind of assert myself more and basically socially transitioned at that point in time. And so that started to make life a little bit better. I started to continue to kind of have this I'll show you attitude in finding ways to adapt, learning to read and learning to write and learning to do math. So by the time I graduated from high school, I was reading at a graduate student's level, and I did pass Algebra 1, 2. I had hoped that I would do one more class than that, but you take sometimes what you can get. And also during that period in time, I was having a lot of depression, a lot of suicide thoughts, which is common of abuse victims, and it's also common for LGBTQ, when you don't have family that recognizes who you are, and that's not important to them, or that societal norms are more important than you. And so I started gaining weight, and by the time I was 30 years old, I was about 520 pounds, and my waist was actually bigger than my height. And so it was at that point in time that my girlfriend and I decided, okay, we've got to do something about this. I don't want surgery. And I don't want to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I was partially paralyzed in a wheelchair by that point in time. And, the alcohol, drugs, depression, abuse, deafness, being isolated, all of the above, had taken its toll on me. And so I decided I had to do something, and surgery was not what I wanted. So again, I had to figure out how I was going to, accomplish this without surgery. So I joined Weight Watchers back then, and about 12 years ago, I'd say. And I've lost 258 pounds since then. So still have a little bit more to go, but, we're getting there. And in the meantime, while doing all of that, I got a puppy and started training service dogs. So I had my first service dog. I also went back to college, and I got my associate's degree in 2018. So, check that off the list. I'm also a musician. I play the violin, the piano, and the recorder.
Wow.
So, despite hearing loss, I still play. Let's see. I transitioned legally about 4 years ago, I'd say. Had a fair amount of family pushback in doing that, including being told by family members that I was an abomination and going to hell. Thankfully, 2 out of the 3 have totally turned that around now and no longer believe that. But again, society pushes so hard on kids and people that it makes it really hard for anyone to be who they truly are, just because of the pushback. So I think that's something that if parents can realize that their kids aren't doing something to them, I think that was the turning point for a number of family members when they finally realized I wasn't doing this to them to ruin their life, to whatever, that I was doing it, for me to be myself.
And still listening to your story, Donavan, you were fighting to be yourself and also fighting to fit in with them by, I'm assuming, this is my assumption, please correct me if I'm wrong, but drug abuse and alcohol abuse and all of that, I feel like that was kind of trying to hide really who you are, because that's not the person I know in you, right? And that is a big deal. If you have this amazing attitude of I'll show you. I'm wondering if do you know where that came from? Like, how is there something that you remember in your mind that stood out to you where that had to be who you were? You had to do that to survive.
I think a large degree of it was I was told um, so often what I wasn't going to be able to do. It was like, I'm never going to be able to hear. I'm never going to be able to speak. I'm never going to be able to read. I mean, my parents were basically told to prepare to institutionalize me because I wasn't going to, in the 70s, um, deaf, disabled, whatever, that was kind of the solution for things. When the child got big enough that you couldn't handle them anymore, institutionalize them. And so I think I just got sick of hearing things from people that couldn't really have any idea who I was.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really have any idea what I understood or what I didn't understand. And I think I also my speech and language pathologist was a saint of a woman. Her specialty was elective mutism, which wasn't necessarily my issue, but it gave her some insight into why some children were capable of speaking but weren't necessarily speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Because while I had to learn how to speak, I also had a lot of things going on in my head with being a victim that I was scared to be able to communicate. To some degree, being able to quantitate what has happened to you makes it all the more scary. It was a lot easier to deal with when I couldn't say this is what happened to me. But at the same time, it became very freeing when I finally could say this is what happened to me. So it's kind of a catch-22 in that situation.
Yeah, I almost want to just sit in what you just said because it's so big. When you couldn't talk, it was almost easier to not have to share it. But once you could talk, you had to share it, and it was scary, but how freeing it was. And I'm not trying to jump here, but if I think about our world today, it's Sherra and I had this conversation, is when we know, we have to do better, right? We have an obligation, we have a responsibility. And you just totally like completed that circle for me. Like that's pretty amazing and big. And Donavan, Tanya has a fantastic question here. She says, was there a thing that someone did or showed you the right kind of support that helped you on your road to this amazing person that you are?
Well, my wife sitting next to me is raising her hand. Yes.
Yay, wife!
Yes, she was a very big part of me, of kind of showing that she showed me a lot in adulthood that I didn't have to conform to the stereotypical society expectations. That I could be myself. And if other people didn't like it, oh well.
Yeah.
We have a plaque on our wall that says, "I do not suffer from insanity. I enjoy every moment of it." And that's kind of a theme of, why do we have to conform to exactly what every other person in this world is like, because we're really not like each other.
Right.
There's commonality, but we're not 100% like.
Yeah, being a person like myself that works in schools with kids, I ask you this from an educator's point of view, and speaking for the students that I know might get to see this page or this post, and then Sherra probably has a question as well. Is there something that stands out to you that somebody in my position could have done different or could have noticed to help you? Or is there something your peers could have noticed and did something for you? Like, I know for a fact Tanya's daughter is, I don't know if she's listening now, but I know that she might. And Tanya shared with me right before this live that they're doing something pretty amazing at school. I think it's Awareness Week or something. And how does a kid help another kid, or what can they do, and what can a staff member pay attention to?
I think the first thing to know and be aware of is when I was in school, it was the late 70s, 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And things have changed. We definitely have not come far enough in any stretch of the imagination, but we're also not stuck where we were when I was in school.
True.
I had several adults. I had several teachers that all tried their best kind of within the construct of what they could actually do. Mandatory reporting hadn't started yet. And in some regards, reporting and making a mistake was almost worse on the teachers. And so not a lot of them were that, forward thinking of trying to do something. But despite that, I had a number of teachers that were willing to meet me where I was. And one teacher in particular, I had a lot of behavioral problems, like a lot of IEP students do. And so at one point in time, there were only 5 teachers in my high school that would let me in their classroom. The rest of them felt that I was too much of a danger to be in their classroom. So I had one teacher in particular that had me for 4 periods out of the day. And he rearranged his schedule so that there was a different class I could be in.
I'm going to cry.
Because I still needed to meet my graduation requirements. And then there was another teacher who I needed to figure out an elective. I needed one more elective to graduate. And the only teacher that would let me in her classroom out of the elective teachers was the debate class. So all the heck she went through trying to set up to have a deaf debater. Yep. And she did an amazing job, and the National Forensic League here in Washington did an amazing job trying to accommodate me to know what to do. And the one that I turned out to be the best at was Lincoln Douglas debate, where I actually needed to know what the other person was saying. I wasn't just debating a single issue that I had no one talking to me about. So yeah, I had a number of adults, and I had one police officer that actually tried his best to figure out what was going on. He knew he was the school resource officer, and he knew something was wrong, and he tried. So yeah, so I think having adults noticing things going on is helpful, but sometimes their hands are tied. There's only so much they can do, especially if the child isn't willing to disclose or willing to say anything. And I was never willing to say anything. So on the flip side of that, with friends, I think that kids just realizing that it's okay to be with with kids that are not exactly like them. That, you don't all have to be in the same clique to, to appreciate someone's friendship. And so I was lucky enough to have some friends in diverse areas. I got into photography, so I made some friends in photography. I also was an avid science fiction reader, and so I made some friends in the science fiction club and the technology club. I did a lot with computers early on. Back in the days where you had to dial up on a modem to somebody else's computer to get on a bulletin board system. So I made some friends that were really willing just to take me as I was, and they were really willing to figure out how to communicate with me. Even when it was hard at times. I learned how to read lips. Eventually in junior high and high school, I did learn some sign language, but not having access to that in elementary school really impaired me in really learning conversational sign, which was sad. But I did have friends that were willing to figure out how to communicate with me, even if it meant we just wrote notes back and forth, or emails, or AOL. Even if we were just talking on AOL.
Yeah, it's so true. I think, Donavan, what I want to just really, I really appreciate you sharing with your experiences with those teachers that really made a difference, and those friends that were willing to see you for the commonality and interests even that you did have. Crystal and I spend a lot of time working with youth, talking about who's your tribe, who are your people right now. Because for some of the kids that we are working with, we may or may not know that that's not home for them. That's not found within their home. Their home isn't their safe space. So we're always encouraging and talking about who could that look like. And it's okay to have your home and people outside of your home that are your safe people, and to really start navigating. And I think as parents and caregivers and adults in our world, those are something to really be aware of and be talking to our kids about. Like, who's on your team? If the word tribe doesn't resonate or it's not an understanding, but who's your support team? Who's your people that you feel safe going to? And like you shared, safe can look very different. He'll be back.
We lost our friend.
I know. He had a reason for when this happened earlier. So I want to look at some of what's come. There he is. He's back. I got to let him in.
Okay.
Donavan, that was me last week 5 times. You're golden. You're fitting in perfect. So
got good internet. What's going on?
I don't know. I agree. I did not have good internet last week, but I just think there's so much value in that part of your story, and something that we need to, as adults in our kids' world, really continue to build and nurture. Is those places, those people, and to be those people when we can.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
And, you brought up a very good point, and I think that's where Tanya's comment comes from, is that times were very different back then. You made a comment to me, I think it was to Sherra and I both actually the other day, about how, I feel like you're the kind of person that you find all the positive in the negative, which is probably, part of why we connect. I love that about you. But you're like, yeah, my speech pathologist person is amazing. She obviously did a great job. You wouldn't let me do sign, and I'm inside going, what the hell's wrong with her? And you're like, and then she was right. I did have to learn how to talk. And you did. I would have never guessed that you were hard of hearing or deaf in any ear. And sign language and the deaf community is my passion. I've been in that community. I have, like, you studied me there. And so you found the positive there. And like Tanya says, that you guys are about the same age. I don't know how she knows that, but she's pretty amazing. But she didn't even know about the LGBTQ community back then. And so for you to be aware of who you were at a time when that wasn't like now, people, dare I say, and if I get pushed back on this, I apologize, but some people are quick to say, oh, we're talking about it now, so we're teaching kids to explore, or we're convincing kids that this is who they are, or whatever. I've heard it all, right? And I want to fight that. And you actually are helping me with that right at this moment. Not that I believe a thing about that, but you like give me a little more solid on it, where in a time when that wasn't talking about, we weren't teaching it or anything, you knew.
Well, and I didn't, I had no words for it. I didn't actually know, what it was called or or anything.
Right.
I just knew I was a boy. I mean, that was just yeah, I mean, it was before, any of the, anything beyond, I apologize, basically gay and lesbian.
Right.
It was back in the days where, to be a transvestite was an absolutely horrible, derogatory, type of thing. And so, no, I didn't have any words for it beyond, just that I knew I was a boy. And, and that was just my reality.
Right.
And thank goodness that you followed your heart, you followed your gut, your knowing, like, yeah, it's a big deal.
Well, it's like, I've been asked by, several people, well, how did you know? And it's like, well, how do you know?
I've heard that before.
And they're just like, well, it's just who I am. And I'm like, then be thankful that your mind and your body and your heart all line up.
Yep.
Because I wasn't that lucky. It doesn't change that I know it. It just means that I wasn't lucky enough, to have everything line up.
Right.
Yeah. Donavan, thank you for that. Because when you're like, I mean, I thought it was kind of funny, the conversation, not funny and like, haha, but, and they're like, well, how do you know? I love that, because I wanted to say, well, I just knew. And you're right. I did just know, like, this is who I am. This is what I was given. And so you knew, and dare me to question that. Right. That's not my job. So, yeah, you are a beautiful man, and I appreciate you for being willing to be who you are, be brave to be who you are. And, yeah, all the other stuff it's just it's stuff, right?
Yeah.
Sherra, did you have we were talking about some questions, and my brain is so wanting to just like,
I know.
Right
Could
now.
you just keep talking, Donavan? Because I'm just, I'm like, so like, yes. I'm in my head. I'm just like, all of this. Yes, yes. But I did have a question, Donavan. It's something that I, think about all the time. We can always should on ourselves, right? Like we're always shitting on ourselves. So this isn't about shitting on ourselves, but, thinking back, like if you were to go back and talk to your child self.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
You know, what would you say? What would you say to yourself? Or what now? What would you want yourself to know?
I
I
think
know
I
that's
would,
heavy.
yeah, I think overall I would I would want myself to know that it did get better. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, seriously, the first time I tried to kill myself, I was 8.
Mm.
And that just, led to a, string of suicide attempts that I seriously, to this day, do not know why one of them wasn't successful.
Mm.
Um, especially the time at 16 when I jumped off a train bridge. I've got no idea why I survived that. So yeah, I think I would want myself to know that the way things are right then at that moment are not the way it's going to be.
Mhm.
If I looked back to my teenage self, um, having a wife, having a job, having um, you know, the the ability to have the rights that everyone else in the country has, is absolutely phenomenal. Um, and so, yeah, I think I'd want myself to know that it gets better, and that people, that there are people out there that do understand, even if, a lot of people don't. Um, you know, uh, I think it was Tanya that said she took a class in college.
Oh,
No, that was
Katie.
Kate. Hmm.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's
Um,
okay.
and yeah, when I first started to consider transitioning, I happened to come across a video of Ryland Whittington's mother, and I um, got a hold of the book Raising Ryland. And
Mm.
as I was reading it, it was like, this was me if my parents had believed me.
Mm.
Um, because my older sister said that, by the time I was 5, I was beginning to speak. I started speech language pathology at 3 in I don't remember what it was, but basically early learning now. It was called something else then, but I had started speech language pathology at 3, and so by the time I was 5, I was actively telling people in the family that I was a boy.
Hmm.
No, I'm not going to wear that. I'm a boy. Um, you know, can I cut my hair off? I'm a boy. And it wasn't until cultural pressures and church pressures started,
Mm.
that the pressure to conform came down on me, and that was when I decided it wasn't worth it anymore to keep pressing for that. So yeah, so in about 2014, I found that author and the book, and was just like, oh my gosh, this is me. And Ryland is also deaf. He got cochlear implants. And so I was like, wow, okay, this is just crazy. But this is me. If my parents had believed me. So absolutely amazing book, amazing family. Um, but um, but yeah, it was like I had to be educated on. Oh, now there's a word for this. I'm transgender. Even as
Hmm.
a 30-something-year-old adult, always knowing that I was a boy, always knowing I was male, I still had to be educated on, wow, this is actually a thing. I'm transgender, and I can legally be male. That just hadn't ever even occurred to me.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to say on that, the fact that you are talking about that book and how that book really helped you. Before you started talking about that, I want you to know that Tanya asked if you'll be writing a book. Because you communicate so positively, but then you even fast forward to a couple comments later and you said something so powerful. This is me if my parents believed me. And I mean, if that be the title of your book, or what she says, maybe a working title for your teaching, it I just want you to really know what we are hearing, and it's so big. Big. I love it, and I'm thankful.
And I think it's exactly, Donavan and Crystal, tell me if I'm wrong, like this is the whole reason that we're doing this and we wanted you here. If one person hears your story and said, oh my God, that's me. I mean, this is what connections are for. I've said this before. We're not here to do life alone. Why we think we should know everything and be able to do this thing called life alone is crazy. And what we see and what was validated in connections and conversations is so, so powerful. I almost feel like it's life-giving.
Yeah. Well, and social media has done so much for this. Another powerful moment in 2014 for me was I started watching the It Gets Better videos because I just needed something in my life that was saying to me how I thought and how I felt was normal. And I happened to come across the Houston, Texas LGBTQ police officers. And one of those police officers said exactly the same thing, that his parents told him he was an abomination and going to hell for being gay. And it was like in that moment, I wasn't alone. Someone else had been told the same thing. And so here I was hearing from someone who, was gay, was a prominent police officer in Houston. I think he had a boyfriend at the time that's now his husband. And that it was okay. That despite what his parents told him, it was okay. He was who he was despite what they were telling him. And so I think this is probably why I'm willing to do this, is because, like you said, you never know who needed to hear just one sentence of what I said, or one resource of, the It Gets Better videos, or, Raising Ryland, or any of the above.
Well, I know, sorry, that just brings me to tears, because it's so, as the mom of a gay son who we were so accepting. I mean, like, we knew our son was gay before he came out to us, like, and so waiting for his time and ready to just love him in that moment, and knowing how hard it was for him to come say it to us, even though it was our world and we were accepting, and what he was fighting and telling himself in what coming out to us would do. To know there's still kids, Donavan, that are in positions that aren't safe to share at home. It gives me goosebumps all over my body, and moves me to tears. I am so grateful that you are alive. I am so grateful that those many attempts didn't take you. I your light and your voice and your spirit are so needed. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. Crystal, I know you had something you wanted to add.
Well, I don't even know how to follow that. Like, I'm trying really hard not to lose it here. But one of the reasons these lives started is because Sherra and I were sitting in a handful of suicides of youth and young adults in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that if somebody is having a hard time feeling accepted, or, I mean, I could name a handful of things, Donavan, in your life that brought you to the place of feeling like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you overcame that. And if one kid can hear from this live today what you said that you wanted to tell yourself when you were a child, that if I could, you said, I don't even have the words, but I'm going to go back and rewatch. I haven't rewatched any of these, but I'm going to go back and rewatch because I want to write it down. You wanted to tell yourself that I'm going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because you did not know that as a child. You did not know that when you attempted to take your life. You nearly were somebody we were going to talk about that died by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I thank God above that I believe in, and that could be whoever you all believe in. I'm not, but for me, that you did not succeed in those attempts. And however you're willing to push this story out, to share this, I'm so grateful today, because if one kid hears, this too will pass. This is the hardest day of my life, but I will be okay. I guess not even a kid, I'm sorry, an adult as well. Like, these times are so dang hard.
Yeah. I think eventually something that happened for me, and I can't remember who told me this, but I was talking with one of my friends, and they asked me, I was suicidal, and I had, oh no, it was the National Suicide Hotline. The lady I was talking to asked me and said, do you really want to die, or do you want to be out of the pain you're in right now?
Oh.
And it was like, yeah, I don't really want to die, but I want this to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I want where I am in my life to stop right now. And so that kind of allowed me to think of, what can I do differently to get this to stop? And I think that's where the hopelessness comes to play so often, is you get hopeless, and then there isn't any other options. All the things that were leading me to depression and hopelessness and wanting to kill myself were all things that, I had 10 other options besides suicide. Maybe they weren't exactly an option I wanted to take, but they were still a better option than ending my life. And so, I learned to ask myself that question from that time on. Do I really want to end my life, or do I just want to be out of whatever this situation is right now?
Another damn powerful thing that you just gave us to just talk about all the time. I'm serious. If we could say that over and over, do I really want to end my life, or do I just want to be out of this moment? I just want this to stop.
It's pain.
Wow. All right, Donavan, you're freaking amazing. And the love from our community, Katie, and Tanya and Laura, and I saw Stephanie comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so beautiful. Katie, she puts how her mom didn't believe at first either. And I honestly, I know her mom. I can't say I can't imagine, because I can imagine. I don't want to imagine, but I can say that her parents are so amazing. It's hard to believe that they went through that. And so I want to give them space for that too. I don't know where your parents are in this, Donavan, and where, if they've come around or what, but I want to give, if there's any parents out there that are struggling with this right now, and I dare them to dig deep and remember the love they had for this baby that they either birthed or they adopted, when they were the cutest things that they could ever imagine. When their feet were still so cute, you would kiss them. Right? Like, that's a real thing, right? I challenge them to remember those moments and think, am I struggling with this because of what society, or what I'm worried about, what's changing me, or or do I really want to love this child for who they are?
Something that I've talked to a lot of people about that is, especially when it comes to LGBTQ, it's something that even if you didn't have the words for it, you knew. I mean, at some point in time, you knew you were gay, you knew you were lesbian, you knew you were trans, bisexual, etc. Even if you didn't necessarily have the words for it. So it's something that you have had time to contemplate and come to the point in your life where you know who you are. For your loved ones and your family, that is a split second.
Yeah.
And you have just, not that you're responsible for it, but to understand that in that split second, you've destroyed all your parents' hopes and dreams for you. I mean, in that split second, my mom is wonderful now. 3 years later, it's a completely different relationship. She now happily introduces me as her youngest son. But in that split second, all my mom's hopes and dreams, for me getting married, having a husband, having children, not going to get into the religious side of things, but all the religious expectations that she had for me, all those things came crashing down on her. And so it took her 3 years to realize that having a happy, healthy son who was married and employed with 2 jobs and had graduated from college, and was successfully training service dogs for other people, had lost all the weight. Kids. What? Had kids. Yeah, raised stepkids.
Yeah.
She all of a sudden realized that was what she wanted for me. So why was she letting me being male take that away from her? And at that point in time, she decided, she would rather have a happy, healthy, thriving son than a dead daughter.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And that's exactly, you said it so much better than I did. I really wanted to give space to the parents that struggle and that had a hard time, or that at first said all the wrong things. Like, have grace on yourself, love yourself, know that that too there's an understanding behind that. And
it is a devastating thing. And I was very angry at first, with my family's reaction and all of that. And then, like I said, I had another transgender friend say to me, you just imploded her world in 1 second. She, how many years did it take you to decide to transition. Yeah, I was 40. I had 40 years to figure this out. But yet I expected her to take it in a second and just be okay with having a son. It would have been wonderful had she been able to do that. And kudo to all the parents that are able to just say, yeah, this is my child. I love them, etc. But the reality is that when you're a parent, you have hopes and dreams that your kids are going to shatter. In one way or another, they're going to shatter them. They're either not going to get the job you want them to get. They're not going to marry the person you want them to marry. They may not get the degree you wanted them to get. They may move to a Buddhist colony and cut off all ties from you. I mean, seriously, let's be realistic. What parent has not had something devastate them because their expectation for their child didn't go the way they wanted it to go?
Yeah, which brings me to just love our kids for where they are, try to understand where they are, be on their team, it's big, and lots going on in our world, right? Lots going on with us as grown-ups. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Some of what I think it was in this platform, we talked about some of our hangups were given to our kids. Like, these kids are resilient. These kids are amazing. These kids are overcoming. And yet I'm struggling with, I want to be back to work. I want the kids at school. What's happening? Our kids are amazing. And let's sit in that. Terry Spiegel, who I call NN, I was crying. I took everything I had to not. So I'm glad you're crying for me. You're taking care of it for me. And yes, Laura, you are your kids' biggest fans. That is no joke.
Stephanie wants to listen to you
Donavan all day too.
I know.
Totally. Go ahead, Sherra, because I just don't know.
I know. Well, I was just going to say, and Crystal and I were talking about this too earlier. I don't know what conversation, because we probably talk way too much she really does have another job. But, I just was like, as a parent, and again, going back to someone, an adult in kids' worlds, what you share is so valuable to us because, we're all doing the best we can with what we have and what we know, right? And we can only do better if we know better. So going back to what you've been open to sharing and being so vulnerable is so valuable to those of us that want to know better so we can do better. And I really think that those watching us, live tonight, and then the replay, I mean, we get a lot of people watching our replay. There is so much value in your story, Donavan, and I just can't thank you enough. Because who doesn't want to do better? Who doesn't want to be able to support their kids in a bigger, better way? Who doesn't want to be that person that they trust? It's valuable information.
Yeah, for sure. And my takeaway, there's so much about tonight, but I would like to share one of my takeaways is, and this also is part of my truth, that I hope that people heard the grown-ups here to have grace for themselves, that don't sit in what we say is the disappointment of our children, and learn about why we might be disappointed. I mean, you mentioned a numerous amount of things that it could be, like my kid's not talking, right? My kid's not talking. Why is my kid not talking? My kid's supposed to talk. By a certain age, they're supposed to do this, right? Like, what's happening? Or in school, why is my kid not reading like the other kids? Oh my gosh, my kid has an IEP or a 504. Like, oh God, do my friends' kids have that too? Because now, how embarrassing, like we sit into that. And then, endured some horrible abuse, and shame on any adult, but more or less a teacher or whatever it was, somebody in the school community, shame on them. But you endured and overcame that. And if there are any families or kids that are going through that, I hope they heard you. This too will pass. Tell somebody. Suicide. It's a horrible, horrible topic right now that nobody really sits comfortable to talk in, but we have to be willing to be uncomfortable because this is happening and this is real life. And your words of, again, this will pass. I don't know why I did not die. But there's a reason, right? And if that reason be because you saved someone today, thank you. So much, so very much. Thank you for your teaching to me and our community today, Donavan.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Donavan. I am so grateful. And I think this relationship has just begun.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, for sure. Any friend of Crystal's is a friend of mine.
That's true. We got lots of friends.
We do. We do. And so I'm so grateful. Thank you to our communities for being such an inspiration and for lifting Donavan up as well. I'm so grateful. Donavan, I hope you get a chance to get in there and read some of those comments. They're feeling like we're feeling. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yay.
Bye,
Have
friends.
a blessed week, everyone.
Hold on, Donavan.
Hold on. What?
Are you hanging up, my friend?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to end this now.
But
all right.